Did you know that a single mistake in project management can cost your company millions of dollars and severely damage its reputation? In this video, I've compiled the top 5 common project management mistakes which project managers do while delivering the projects. I've compiled these mistakes based on my 20 years of project and program management experience. Hey guys, my name is Saurabh and this channel is all about project management and helping project managers to unleash the leadership potential in them. So, we'll be taking a look at the various project management mistakes and how you can avoid them. So, the first mistake which we have seen very frequently is poorly defined project scope. That is the major blunder which a project manager can do if they do not have a defined scope to deliver the project which they are doing. And if they do not have a project scope defined, then they can continuously deliver the project aimlessly without any constant scope of what they have to achieve. And how you can avoid this mistake, the first step which you can do is to create a comprehensive scope statement. So, in the initiation phase of the project, where a scope is defined, a scope statement is also defined. And in the planning stage, you can just make it a comprehensive scope statement. So, this scope statement is very important, and the project manager has to make sure that all the components which needs to be delivered, which are need to be part of the scope of that project, should be included in that scope statement. The next thing which a project manager can do is to ensure the stakeholders input and agreement. So it all comes with the stakeholder management part. You need to identify the stakeholders, be it the external stakeholders or the internal stakeholders, and you have to take their input and agreement before you finalize the scope statement, the scope for a particular project. It is very important that you do not miss out on any of the stakeholder which can impact your project delivery at a later stage. And then a project manager can also do is to do a change control to manage the scope changes. We all know that the projects are all dynamic and there could be changes in the scope later on when the project is in the execution phase. Then the project manager has to do a change control and get that change approved by the various stakeholders and adjust the baseline, the planning baseline, the scope baseline, the cost baseline, and the schedule for the particular project. So this is how number one mistake of project scope statement, and this is how the number one mistake of poorly defined project scope can be avoided, and project manager can make sure that the scope is very well defined. Second problem, the second mistake which we have seen in the projects is the inadequate communication. What does this mean? That there is no communication plan in place. So if there is no communication plan in place, there is no governance in place. Nobody knows who to communicate to, and who to report the status to, who to get the buy-in from, not identifying the stakeholders. So the project manager can use effective communication tools and techniques. What that means, a communication plan needs to be in place by the project manager, which can clearly define the level of communication which needs to happen between the project manager and the stakeholders and the project team, and whether that communication is going to be a face-to-face meeting, a virtual meeting, or a communication through email. So all of that needs to be documented well in advance, so that there is no inadequate communication issues coming up later during the project life cycle. The other thing which a project manager can do is to hold a regular team meeting and provide the status updates. So project manager leads a team, and that team could be of other project managers, project coordinators, consultants, the software developers. It could be anybody, including vendors. So project manager has to make sure that he does that regular team meeting and get the status update uh, from the team on the deliverables which they are working on, and then a project manager can report those status to the different stakeholders. The other point which project manager can ensure is to encourage open, honest feedback from all team members. So this means that a project manager should not be rigid with his thoughts and the way of working. He should be open enough to get the feedback from the other team members as well as to what they think. To what they think, as to what they feel, if the things are going right or if the things are going wrong, and what can be done to rectify those issues. So it is very important to have that communication channel open with all the team members, and there is a two-way communication. It's not that only project manager is doing the communication. It's a project team also has to provide their inputs, and project manager seeks their input and include the feedback from the team in the planning and the status updates to the stakeholders. The third mistakes which we have seen on the projects is the insufficient planning and estimation, which means that the planning is not done properly and the estimates for schedule, for cost, and for the timeline were not done correctly. And if you do this mistake, it is going to have a very big impact on your overall project delivery. Your project will not be completed on time. The cost can overrun, the resources cost can overrun, the scope is not defined. So all these mistakes are part of that insufficient planning and estimation. And how you can avoid this mistake is by breaking down the project into manageable tasks. This way, a project manager has the clear understanding and the clear view of all the delivery which needs to be delivered in the project, and that way the project manager can do the planning and the estimate accordingly once he breaks down the project into manageable tasks. The project manager has to leverage historical data and expert opinions. So, if a project manager is signed on a project and he has to do an estimate on the cost for the resources and the cost for the material to deliver the project, the project manager can refer to the historical data which is available as a part of the lesson learned from the past projects, and also take opinion and feedback from the different stakeholders. So as you can see, it is all part of the same ecosystem where everything is interlinked. The stakeholder management, the resource management, the planning, everything is linked. This leveraging of the historical data and taking the opinion is going to solve your problem of inaccurate estimate. And the other thing which project manager has to do is to continuously monitor and adjust the plans as needed. So it's part of the monitoring and control where a project manager has to make sure that the deliverables are being delivered as per the plan which he created initially. And if there are any deviances, or if he sees that there are some issues, he should be flexible enough to adjust the plans to deliver the project. Fourth mistake which we have seen is the ineffective risk management. Risk management is a very important part which needs to be done by the project manager. He needs to be very much open minded, and he needs to foresee the risks which could impact the project which the project manager is delivering. And those risks could be external risk, those risks could be internal risk, it could be due to the challenges in the supply chain, it could be due to some organizational changes, it could be due to external factors. So all those risks should be very well maintained and very well highlighted by the project manager, and as a part of the risk management strategy. And how project manager can do this is by proactively identifying and prioritizing the potential risks. So proactively, project manager has to foresee the risks which could impact the project. It's based on the experience of the project manager, based on the lessons learned, based on the stakeholders feedback, and accordingly the project manager can prioritize the risk, like which risk needs to be mitigated first, which risk can come up in future, and what are the mitigation plans for those risks. And project manager can develop a risk response plan with the mitigation and contingency measures. So if you see that a risk is going to be there, which could impact the project negatively, then a risk management, a risk response plan with the mitigation and the contingency measures should be in place, so that as soon as that risk can come up, you have that a plan B ready to mitigate that risk. And the project manager has to periodically review and update the risk management plan, which is very important. It could be done on weekly basis or fortnightly basis, but a project manager has to constantly review and update the plan, and to add any new risks, close any risks which are no longer valid and not going to impact the project. So that's a part of the project manager who has to update the risk management plan. Talking about the next mistake is the lack of stakeholder engagement, and this all comes with if you have not identified the stakeholders. So project manager has to ensure that he identifies and understand the interests of all the stakeholders. Make sure that none of the stakeholder, it could be a small person, it could be a big person in your company, they should not be left out as a part of the stakeholder management. And the project manager is in constantly touch with the stakeholder to make sure that their interests are also taken into account in as a part of the project plan. A project manager has to maintain a regular communication and provide progress updates. So again, the communication is the key. Project manager has to be excellent communicator, and he needs to provide the update to all the stakeholders, so that the engagement of stakeholders are there throughout the project. It should not be that you have identified a stakeholder at the beginning of the project and then you have not spoken to that stakeholder at the very end of the project, and that could potentially jeopardize your project delivery. And the project manager can encourage the stakeholders to participate in the decision making. So whenever there is a decision which needs to be taken place, a big decision, then make sure that all the stakeholders are participating and their feedback has been taken into account before any decision is being made on the project. So guys, these are the top 5 mistakes which we have seen in the various projects, and I hope you got some value out of this video and you're going to apply the tips which I've shared in this video in your projects. And if you have any questions, do let me know in the comments down below and I'll personally respond to them. And I also want you to share your project management experiences, the mistakes which you have seen in your projects as well. And make sure to subscribe to the channel and like this video. Thank you very much for watching. I will see you again in the next video.